investment agreements, is also here with us. But discussions are also taking place in other fora, such as the OECD, the free trade agreements, and also increasingly knocking at the door of the WTO. So we are also happy that Xavier Karim, who negotiates at the WTO for South Africa, is able to join us. Foreign investment is a very complex topic. It used to be thought that foreign direct investment is all bad. Now it is thought that it's all good. And like most things, the truth is somewhere in between. There are positive aspects, there are adverse implications, and therefore it is a real challenge for economists as well as for policymakers to get into the truth about what is foreign investment and how to deal with policy relating to foreign investment. Okay? Some of the known advantages include that the foreign investor, if he comes in to set up factories and so on, will be able to provide export markets. But this is not necessarily so, because many investors coming in want to provide for the domestic market, and therefore you're not able to export. So if you want to encourage the investor to export, you have to take policy measures. Another advantage could be technology transfer. Coming in with the industrial factory and the industrial factory that the investor brings in, with the machinery, know-how and so on, will be technology that is transferred. But is there really a technology transfer to the host country, or is the company just retaining the technology? So you need policy to encourage or even oblige the company to transfer technology to local firms, to the local environment and so on. It is thought that foreign investment brings in money, but this is not necessarily so, because they may bring in their own equipment and so on, but not necessarily money, or if they bring in the money, there is also very high export of profits. And the company may be able, within 2, 3 or 4 years, to recover all the money that they have brought in, and the rest of it is pure profit. Much of foreign direct investment actually is retained profit, and it's not new money that is coming in. So there have been some studies done in many countries that show that the foreign investor, after the initial years, may take out 3 to 4 times more money than it brings in, and may also bring in imported inputs. So the impact on the balance of payments of the country may be often negative rather than positive. So with these pros and cons of foreign investment, the lesson we have learned in successful countries that have brought in foreign investment and benefited is policy that encourages the benefits but discourages the adverse effects of foreign investment. And therefore comes the range of policies that the government has been undertaking, the successful governments, or must be undertaking, if we are to have net benefits of foreign investment. The last problem, of course, is the definition of foreign investment. Most foreign investment coming in is not of the type that is productive, that has factories that are new and so on. It could be in the form of acquisition of local assets rather than creation of new assets. And of course, most topical now, much of foreign investment coming in is of the speculative type and not of the productive type. And this, of course, needs to be also controlled, that we welcome productive but not unproductive speculative capital. Now, this means that the government must be able to have a range of policies that encourages the retention of the benefits, for example, through joint ventures, so that the local economy can benefit from the profits, a share of the profits, or performance requirements such as transfer your technology, locate yourself in certain parts of the country, reinvest a certain portion of your profits, export your products, etc., so that the country will reap the benefits. Then comes the issue of investment agreements. There were attempts to set up a multilateral investment agreement at the OECD and WTO. This has failed, so today we don't have a multilateral investment agreement. But we do have a proliferation of bilateral investment treaties in FTAs, but also as investment treaties. There are 3,000 investment treaties as far as we know. And this has excited a lot of debate in recent years because of the implications of these investment treaties, particularly in developing countries, where they are the recipients rather than the promoters of foreign investment. So in this book, in the first chapter, which is my introductory chapter, I lay out all the aspects of the debate that is now going on, the controversial provisions of these investment treaties, whether in FTAs or BITs, including the scope and definition of investment, the provision of national treatment, the concept of fair and equitable treatment, expropriation, pre-establishment rights, the prohibition of performance requirements that I was talking about just now, that governments are not allowed to implement most of these performance requirements that were put in by governments in order to maximize the benefits. The freedom of capital flows, the survival clause. After the agreement expires, it will live for another 10 years or 15 years. And finally, the dispute settlement system. Because most of these bilateral investment treaties, or even the FTA's investment chapter, has recourse to investor-state dispute settlement system, which in recent years has led to many criticisms as to who controls the arbitration system. Is it only a few law firms, or is it a really professional system? Many of the judgments are called into question, and the awards can be very high. Okay? So I'm sure this is all going to be explained by our panelists. I'm just giving an overview. But there have also been criticisms about the system of ISDS in the sense that it favors a foreign investor against a local investor, discriminates in favor of the foreign investor, which is allowed under national treatment. You can't discriminate against the foreign investor, but you can discriminate against the local investor. So this is a big sticking point. And secondly, are the laws that Parliament or Congress enact swept aside by decisions of a foreign or international tribunal, which goes against national law and which bypasses the national judiciary. So this raises issues of judicial independence and also parliamentary sovereignty, which has been raised in many, many countries. Many developing countries sign on to the bilateral treaties without understanding what the provisions were and without understanding the implications of the dispute settlement system. But today, many of them, through bitter experience, have begun to understand more simply because they have been brought to the tribunal with claims of sometimes billions of dollars, which the tribunal has also awarded in terms of millions or even billions of dollars. So this has given rise to a lot of discussion inside developing countries. Some of them have decided to withdraw from the investment treaties that they have signed, and they are coming forward with alternatives such as their own national model treaty, their own national investment protection laws that are balanced with the right of the government to regulate. And they are also seeking an international framework that will reform the existing bilateral investment treaties. So I was at the UNCTAD investment conference last year, where I think the head of the UNCTAD division said that the aim of this workshop, is not to discuss whether we should reform. We have decided we are going to reform. The issue is how to do it, when to do it, and so on. So reform is in the air in relation to the bilateral investment treaties. The final question, which I don't think this book deals with, is should we start a negotiation for a multilateral treaty even as we are reforming the bilateral treaties? Or should we reform the existing treaties first so that we clarify what are provisions and concepts that are appropriate? My fear is that if we begin a multilateral negotiation now, it will be mainly based on the flawed treaties that we now have that are causing all the problems. So we need to be clear about the reforms that are needed so that we don't have a multilateral treaty that simply replicates the bilateral treaties into a form which is even more dangerous, because being multilateral, everybody has to join. Okay? So reform of the bilateral treaties first before we really think about a multilateral treaty. Otherwise, we are stumbling into a multilateral treaty that will look very much, in terms of the provisions and so on, like the bilateral treaties. With these few words, I'm sorry, they are not few, I'm sorry. They were meant to be few. May I hand the session over to Vice Yu, and also on behalf of the South Centre, I welcome all the panelists. We thank the authors of the book. We thank all of you for coming, and we thank the UN Bookshop for helping us to distribute the book to those of you who are interested. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Martin, and thank you for those words.